This is A.E. Chandler, behind the scenes with the Glenbow Museum's military collection. So I get to be back here because I'm recataloguing some of the material, the pole arms, the edged weapons, and the European plate armor. So I just wanted to talk a little bit today about how exactly I go about doing that. So when you're doing the plate armor and you're recataloguing it, first you have to look at the original catalog entries, any records at all having to do with that harness or grouping. And then you have to look at the artifact and make sure that you have all the pieces for it, or if you're missing a piece, you have to note that down. You do a search in the catalog and back here in storage, see if you can figure out where it went. And the next thing I look at is how all of the components in the grouping are numbered. So I've been going through and redoing some of the numbering so that we are going top down and from left to right. Actually, yeah, it'd be from left to right because I'm going from the armor's left to right. So this is Bertrand, also known as R1945.2, and then we have R95.2A, R95.2B. It's supposed to do that, don't worry. The breastplate is usually C, backplate is D, and you go E, F, G, H, I, J, all the way down. And when you are relabeling a piece, as I had to do with this tasset here from another harness, you keep the original label here and then just added an M. So to do that, I just wrote on regular paper with this kind of a pen. If you use a regular pen, it really doesn't work. Conservation mixes up some of this to seal it in, and you use your tweezers to put your tiny little square of paper on the sticky stuff and then give it another coat of the sticky stuff over so that it stays on. Another thing that I do when recataloguing the armor is I take a look at all the pieces and I have to measure them. So I have to weigh them in grams and I have to measure them in 3 dimensions in millimeters so that we know if we're putting it on display or putting it in a different case for storage, how big that box or display case needs to be. And I also like to take a measurement of the humerus, if I can, if that's possible, with the armor mounted on a mannequin, and then I can get an idea of how tall the person who is wearing the armor would have been. I just think that's a neat bit of information to have. Another thing that I look at is the type of leather that's on each piece, and when you take it off the mannequin you get to see all the leather that's inside on the lining, or whether it's straps, and a lot of the leather that you see is replaced leather, but it still gives you an idea of when pieces of the armor started to be associated with one another, whether the leather is original or whether this was an armor that got a lot of attention from people who wanted to repair it or restore it. So all of that information goes in and helps you to start creating a narrative about the life story of a grouping. This is some of our Japanese armor that we have in storage. I don't work with this, but I just thought it'd be interesting to show you while we talk about other things that I do deal with. One thing that's important to note down when you're cataloging armor is the condition. You know, is there rust, is there pitting, are there cracks, dents, different things maybe conservators would want to look at or keep track of to see if it's getting worse. Another thing is stamps. Like sometimes you get decorations like these dragons, or sometimes you get little stamps of the armorer's initial or something like that, or maybe a very tiny coat of arms for Nuremberg, and then you're able to better place the armor that you're working with into context. Of course, there's always describing the armor, how many plates are involved, what they look like, the decoration on them, Is there anything unique about them that people should know when they are doing their research in the catalog? And of course it involves a fair amount of research on my part as well, just seeing if I can track down any tiny piece of information for this armor that's 500 years old that doesn't have a clear provenance, just seeing if we can add to that life story. And of course there are a lot of different sources that have cataloged some of this armor before, so I have to look at who's provided what information in the past, what credentials they have, compare their differing viewpoints, because they don't always quite agree, and just note down, how that all evens out in the end. So those are some of the things that I take into consideration when I'm recataloging the European plate armor, and making sure that we have a more complete record of it in our files, so that people can use the collection for research, and hopefully it will serve to help people in the future. If you're interested in more original history, then you can check out the other videos on this channel, or my historical novel, The Scarlet Forest, A Tale of Robin Hood, available at Chapters, Amazon, and all over. Thanks!